Hi everyone, my name is Hailey Ficarrotta, and in this video I will be discussing the impact of the ketogenic diet on insulin and glucagon regulation on the human body as it relates to hypoglycemia and other health implications. Through careful reading and the gathering of information, I was able to form a question that is relevant to this topic and conduct my own research to consider a possible conclusion. I first wanted to educate myself on the exact definition, inclusions, and limitations of the ketogenic diet before diving into the biological side effects on the body. So, what is the ketogenic diet? The keto diet is a dietary implementation that focuses on macronutrient intake to include very low carbohydrate, moderate protein, and high fat intake. Certain foods are limited or excluded while on this diet. This includes bread, pasta, rice, and other refined carbs, as well as starchy vegetables and certain fresh fruits like mangoes, bananas, and grapes. Quinoa and other grains, beans, legumes, dried fruits, sugary sodas, juices, honey, syrups, and other condiments are also limited or excluded. Now for the biological effects on the body. Because this diet reduces the body's main source of energy from carbohydrates, insulin secretion is also reduced. Due to the lack of intake of carbohydrates, two other metabolic processes are stimulated. They are gluconeogenesis and ketogenesis. To provide alternate sources of energy for the body, glucose is synthesized in the liver from other substitutes. When the unavailability of glucose furthers, ketone bodies are then produced to replace glucose as the primary source of energy. The body is now in a state known as ketosis, and weight loss can be achieved by stimulating this. Now, I'd like to discuss the purpose of the regulation of insulin and glucagon in the body and why it is imperative in maintaining overall health. Glucagon and insulin are dietary hormones secreted by the pancreas that work in opposition to regulate metabolism and balance blood glucose levels. They work in a negative feedback loop to keep the body's blood sugar within the appropriate range, which is between 70 and 100 milligrams per deciliter while fasting. When carbohydrates are converted into glucose during digestion, the pancreas signals insulin production, telling cells in the body to begin glucose intake from the bloodstream. Increased blood glucose stimulates the release of insulin, which causes cells to remove glucose from the blood and either use it for energy or store it as glycogen or fat. Glucagon counteracts the actions of insulin by signaling muscle and liver cells to convert the stored glycogen back into glucose. It is then released back into the bloodstream by these cells so that other cells can use glucose for energy. Without insulin and glucagon to counteract these actions, we cannot maintain blood glucose levels. Because this hormone cycle is constantly in motion, glucagon and insulin regulation prevents the body's blood sugar levels from dropping below the normal threshold. With all of this background information in mind, I decided to pose this research question. What effects does a ketogenic diet have on insulin and glucagon regulation, and how does it affect the body in the short and long term as it pertains to hypoglycemia and other health outcomes? From my research, the keto diet absolutely has an effect on insulin and glucagon regulation in the body. As I stated earlier, the massive reduction of carbohydrate intake leads to the lack of insulin secretion. Because of the macronutrient content of this diet, the ability of insulin to regulate blood glucose levels is considerably altered. If the body is not allowed to properly use insulin, blood sugar is not properly controlled. An improper balance of insulin control is induced, which in turn diminishes glucagon secretion and regulation. When insulin is not being regularly produced, the glucagon hormone will also follow that pattern. To answer the initial question about the effect of the ketogenic diet on insulin and glucagon regulation, it is acceptable to say that this dietary method notably lessens the regulatory hormone cycle. According to credible sources, the ketogenic diet has proven to have both adverse short-term and long-term effects. A short-term effect is rapid weight loss in obese patients due to the lack of insulin secretion. This weight loss can last for up to 2 years. There's a low stimulus for insulin secretion because the stimulus for fat and glucose storage is sharply reduced, which is from low blood glucose feedback during ketogenesis. Other short-term effects in the body from the lack of glucose stimulation include hunger pangs, headaches, nausea, fatigue, dizziness, and constipation from the initial dietary changes. Without the needed glucose stimulation for insulin and glucagon secretion to regulate blood sugar levels, The ketosis state in the body can induce weight loss along with other unpleasant side effects. On the other hand, the long-term effects of this diet are not well known due to limited information, but some studies have found certain health implications. Hypoglycemia, decreased bone density, dehydration and electrolyte disturbances, and vitamin and mineral deficiencies are all examples of adverse effects of the keto diet as time goes on. Kidney stones are also possible due to the high intake of animal proteins, as well as having other potential heart issues. Studies have shown an increased risk of AFib associated with the keto diet due to the heart's sensitivity to changes in pH, triggering episodes of atrial fibrillation. Hypoglycemia is one of the possible findings that I thought was particularly interesting in accordance with insulin and glucagon regulation in the body. Hypoglycemia is a condition that is considered to result when blood glucose levels dip to levels at or below 50 milligrams per deciliter. With glucose stores in the liver being low on this diet, the liver cannot release glucose into the bloodstream, therefore resulting in hypoglycemia. The symptoms of hypoglycemia can vary, but as time goes on, the symptoms worsen. Shakiness, an irregular fast heartbeat, irritability, dizziness, and numbness in certain parts of the body are signs of this condition. As it worsens, symptoms include slurred speech, blurry vision, loss of coordination, confusion, and unusual behavior. In severe cases, seizures and unconsciousness may be caused as well. There is not enough recovered data through studies or analyses to determine the major long-term effects of maintaining a keto diet. I feel that this information should be enough to deter an individual from following an unsuitable dietary lifestyle. Because of the risk of abnormally low blood glucose levels coupled with inadequate insulin regulation, the ketogenic diet is not meant to be sustained for the long run. Although the ketogenic diet may help reduce cardiovascular risk factors through weight loss, improve glycemic control, and overall metabolism regulation for the short term, I do not believe that this diet should be recommended for a long-term audience. With the lack of literature and the adverse effects on insulin and glucagon regulation causing possible health implications over the long run, I would also say that the ketogenic diet is not favorable or sustainable. More concrete information and devoted research to this topic are unquestionably necessary to make conclusive statements, but it is clear that the ketogenic diet has adverse effects on the body depending on outside contributions and a timeline. As a nutrition major student who is in the student nutritionist program here at UMass, I would guide a client who is curious about the keto diet to lose weight in a direction that focuses on other areas of nutrition. I would advise a client to avoid the idea of a restrictive diet, especially one that cuts out a whole food group. I would encourage them to center their focus around other practices such as intuitive eating and paying closer attention to how they feel before, during, and after their meals. Being mindful is a very important part of eating, and I would support the idea of them focusing more on sustainable and efficient eating habits to reach their goals. Here are the links to more resources centered around intuitive eating and other health habits. Thank you.